Welcome to another episode of Ain't It Scary with Sean and Carrie. I'm the titular Sean.
And I'm the very titular Carrie.
It's the show where we talk about the unbelievable, the unexplained, the spooky, the ooky, and the bizarre, and try to find an answer. Hello, Caroline.
Hi.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Sean. And happy holidays.
Happy Hanukkah, or Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa.
That was unnecessary.
Sometimes you see it with the CH, and I think a CH is fun.
Yeah.
It's just happy all of it, but it is Christmas Eve. If you're listening to this right when it came out, piping hot off the presses, it's Christmas Eve. It was the night before Christmas, Caroline, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring.
We literally had to tell Poe to shut up just to record.
Or was a creature stirring? Maybe several creatures were stirring. Because today...
Did you get me a dog? Another one? Sean.
I think I've taken this in a wrong direction because the expectations are now too high.
Uh-oh.
No, today we will be discussing the North American Cryptid B team.
Oh.
Maybe I should say C team, actually. I'm not sure. Look, you got your big boys of cryptids, right? We all know Bigfoot. We all know Nessie.
Personally and intimately.
We all know the Chupacabra.
Chupacabra.
El Chupa.
Oh.
Oh. Mouth decided to stop working there.
Dip, dip.
El Chupacabra.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Nope, my mouth still isn't working. We should quit at this. You may even have heard of... Actually, you know what? The B team is probably the Mothman and the Jersey Devil.
Love those boys.
Yeah, we're getting down to the North American Cryptid C team today.
C stands for cryptid, Sean.
C stands for cryptid.
That's what my parents always told me when they were teaching me how to spell my name.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
It explains so much.
C is for cryptid, A is for aliens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. U?
What?
What is U for?
There's no U in my name.
Oh, yeah, but didn't they have to do the whole alphabet at some point?
Oh, yes. Ufology, obviously.
Okay, what's the R for?
Rhinoceros.
Okay, and that's why you love large animals of the African plain so much.
I do. It's a passion of mine.
I can't watch for our next podcast coming soon about the large animals of the African plain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing about cryptids, and you could expect this, because if there was a large animal out there that science hadn't pinned down yet, you could expect that it would have a regional kind of territory it would roam around in. You're not going to see Bigfoot across the whole country. Now, people do see Bigfoot across the whole country.
Well, migration exists, Sean.
That's true. And about a third of Bigfoot sightings are all centered and clustered in the Pacific Northwest, with the other 2/3 being spread out across the country. So we can pinpoint Bigfoot to that area, right?
Listen, he's a cool dude. He's a hipster. He just likes to lay back and to be chill, man.
Oh, this guy, Bigfoot, you know, he loves just a frothy nitro cold brew.
Mm-hmm. A burrito.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With French
probably
fries
has dreads that are not allowed culturally, but we'll let it slide because it's a Bigfoot.
You know, a Bigfoot's hair might naturally form into dreads just because of a function of his habitat and lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of lifestyles involving a lot of dreadlocks and dreadlocks on white people specifically, if you go down to Florida, you don't so much have the Bigfoot as the skunk ape is what they'll talk about in Florida.
Because in Florida, everything smells more.
Yes, exactly. And stories of a large, foul-smelling, Bigfoot-like hominid go back to like settler times in Florida. And so the skunk ape is kind of their version of the same thing. Actually, in 1974, all around Dade County, there were sightings in the suburbs of a large, nude, hairy man who smelled terrible, just wandering, kind of loping through people's backyards. Like,
We're not sure this is Alex Jones or something.
well, that's the thing. To me, that immediately just sounds like Florida man. Any story
drunk.
yes, yeah. There have to be thousands of skunk apes in that state.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Nonetheless, there were a lot of sightings, a lot of Bigfoot not Bigfoot hunters, a lot of skunk ape hunters out there. And in 1977, Florida legislature went so far as to attempt to pass a skunk ape protection law.
Really?
Just to make sure you weren't allowed to kill the skunk ape.
Who presented that for ratification?
Some brave soul.
Wow.
Some true brave warrior of justice.
That's a real American.
Yeah. But even the skunk ape is more well-known than what we're talking about. The Florida has kind of, as a state, taken the skunk ape on as an unofficial mascot. You know, it has a lot of qualities.
It's like the gritty of Florida.
Yes, it has so many qualities that Florida sees in itself. And
a gritty.
Yeah, it's self-sufficiency and kind of...
smelly.
Well, I didn't say it.
Just saying.
And even I've seen signs during the coronavirus pandemic that's gripped our nation during these trying times, Carrie.
These unprecedented times.
These unpredictable times. I've seen signs, where the skunk ape is kind of encouraging people to socially distance because of the smell associated with the skunk ape. So they make a lot of hay with that to this point.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking cryptids
More
today
specific.
that are more specific and less of a big deal than that.
Bring it on.
All right. I'm going to start here with this is probably the most Bigfoot-like creature on our list. This is the Fouke Monster.
Sorry.
I know. This is the Fouke Monster.
Stop.
Fouke.
Are you
Fouke.
sure
Fouke.
that this is how it's pronounced?
Fouke.
Not Fouke.
Fouke, Arkansas.
That's not very nice.
I am pretty sure it is Fouke, Arkansas, where this monster was found.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is in the greater Texarkana region. So, Texarkana is a city that's in both Texas and Arkansas.
Okay.
Well, it's two cities with the same name next to each other. One's in Texas and one's in Arkansas.
Genuinely just still trying not to crack up.
Here in Fouke, we're on the
Stop.
Here on Fouke, we're on the Arkansas side. The legend of the Fouke monster began in 1971.
When Bill Clinton went to college.
He was a Fouke monster.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Foukes.
Stupid.
On May 2nd, 1971, Elizabeth Ford, a resident of...
You look so serious right now, but I just want to laugh.
It's a serious topic, Caroline, because listen to what's going to happen to Elizabeth. She was sleeping on the couch. Sound familiar?
What is that supposed to mean?
You like to have a nap on the couch next to the nice heater.
Oh, that sounded like some weird thing where I make you sleep on the couch. Marriage is great, people. Marriage is great.
No, it's all going very well. She's asleep on the couch, and through their screen window, a clawed arm covered in black fur just jammed through the screen and started kind of groping through the window at her.
Hey, baby.
Now, her husband and his brother were both home, and they chased the thing away.
Mm-hmm.
Chased it into the dark. As they rushed into the room, the arm kind of withdrew. They pile out into the yard. They see a shape, just a sort of a vague man-like shape, escaping into the woods. They fired several shots at it. They were sure they hit it, but they never found any blood. And after the creature had receded into the woods, they found scratches on the porch and the windowsill and damage to the siding of the house. Now they look around a little more, and they found large, 3-toed tracks.
What the Fouke?
Yeah, you're an idiot. And it was only at this point that it occurred to the Fords that they had heard some noises around the house the last few nights. But they hadn't thought too much of it. They had just moved in, actually, and this was a new area to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first incident.
So
now,
they kind of lived in, like, Bumblefook?
You could say that, certainly. You're a monster.
A Fouke monster.
Just like Bill Clinton in college.
Don't put that evil on me.
Now, later that month, on May 23rd, 3 witnesses claimed to have seen a similar incident. They saw what they called an ape-like creature crossing Highway 71. Now, that report hit the newspapers, and more footprints followed. More footprints and more sightings.
Do apes have 3 toes?
No.
Okay.
In fact, I'll get to that later.
Okay.
There was probably the best known footprint of the Fouke monster, and I'll get a photo up on the website along with this episode. Came from this guy named Scott Keith, who was a gas station owner, and he found prints in his soybean field. He took a cast of one, and that kind of became the best known.
Fouke prints.
Fouke print. The radio station KAAY offered a bounty for the capture or killing of the Fouke monster.
Okay.
Of a
I don't know why I'm so silly today.
Hey, you see that reward? Who offered that reward?
Okay.
Sorry, what?
Okay.
You know, who offered it?
Okay.
That Johnny freaks me out. Posses started to gather with dogs. They would head out there to look for this thing.
Not a posse.
Yeah, none of the dogs could catch a scent, though. And people even started grabbing guns and heading out there to hunt the Fouke monster. So people started heading out to hunt this thing, and the Miller County Sheriff Department actually had to instate, and remember we're in Texarkana, a no guns policy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
They're taking their guns.
That's not going to be a popular thing, but they just were sure someone was going to shoot someone else as they were both out there looking for this monster.
Yeah, just some hairy man.
Yeah, and it's a bunch of hairy men looking for it.
Oh, for sure. Lots of overalls, probably.
Mm-hmm. In the year of 1971, 3 different people were fined $59 apiece for filing fraudulent, quote, monster reports. That's how the police blotter took the news down.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that you could go to jail for that.
I know. So this was kind of a summer phenomenon for 1971. And then...
Like the clown sightings.
Yes. Yeah, very much like a clown thing. And I think that's part of what this is it just gets in people's imagination. And then if you see a big shape, you go like, was that the big ape thing I heard about? Mm-hmm. So after it was kind of the summer of 1971, this kind of made the town a local tourist attraction for a little bit. People were very excited about it. And then interest started to wane over the following years. And every now and then there would be another reported sighting of the Fouke monster, but that would kind of be it.
Another Fouke seen wandering about again.
Yep. 1978, a kid found some more footprints, and it was kind of just a shrug. The legend had run its course. However, that legend does live on in the form of 5 different films that have been made about this monster.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. The Legend of Boggy Creek was a documentary-style horror film.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Released in 1972. That was followed up by Return to Boggy Creek in 1977, which was...
Creek Harder,
but that was not a sequel to the original, not made by the same people, and was a totally fictional plot that had nothing to do with Bigfoot.
So it's basically Troll 2.
Yes, like a Troll 2 situation. Then... Confusingly, the third film is Boggy Creek 2, and the legend continues. Now, that is an official sequel to the first Boggy Creek film.
My God.
Just in 2010, we had Boggy Creek The Legend is True, which was marketed as a remake of the original.
First, the legend continued, and then it was verified as true.
Yes. But it turned out it was an unrelated story set in Boggy Creek, Texas, which is a fictional town.
So the legend... is not true.
The legend was not true. And finally, the following year, we had The Legacy of Boggy Creek, which was actually a low-budget indie film released as The Skunk Ape Story, and then recut
like the Buddy Holly story.
Mm-hmm. And then re-edited.
Gary Busey also played the Fouke monster.
Gary Busey might be the Fouke monster.
Fair.
They then re-edited the footage they had into something they released on video as The Legacy of Boggy Creek.
Okay. Now,
So in that way, this story can live on in our imaginations forever, even though there haven't been any recent sightings. Now,
sure.
as you pointed out, Carrie, within 6 months of the first report, an archaeologist from nearby Southern State College, that's now Southern Arkansas University, this guy named Frank Schambach said, quote, "There is a 99% chance those tracks are a hoax." And he said, just like you, Carrie, that couldn't have been a primate or a hominid. You know, you said it looked like an ape, right? It couldn't have been a primate with 3 toes because every primate that has ever existed has 5 toes.
Yeah, because, we come from them. We didn't just develop 2 random toes.
That's right. And this part's maybe a problem for some Bigfoot sightings too. All primates ever that we know of are diurnal. We awake during the day and asleep at night.
Okay.
So you're not going to find an ape typically hunting at night or whatever.
Yeah, but people see them during the day, and also the lady was awake,
Yeah, so it wasn't.
It's not like primates are like, oh, sun's down, time to go to bed. Maybe they had stuff to do, Sean.
You're right. I will point out she wasn't awake. She was specifically sleeping.
The other people then.
Yes. But so that's our guy. That's the Fouke Monster. And that's the legend of Boggy Creek.
Wow.
You see,
Rest in power, King.
What I've found, and the reason I wanted to do this episode and kind of compile all these stories in the same place, is you do see a similar plot structure. The monsters are sometimes different, but the plot structure of the way this story kind of ebbs and then flows.
The kind of, a vulnerable young woman was attacked and the whole town goes after her. I mean, it's very every old-fashioned horror movie.
Yes, but I even mean what you're going to see from most of these stories is a sighting happens, an alleged sighting. That's followed by a few news reports, some skepticism, and then a few more sightings happen, and then you kind of get swept up in a mass hysteria kind of thing. Except it's a fun mass hysteria that people actually kind of like. I don't think people are terrified of the Fouke Monster.
No.
And so it's a fun thing to play into, even if you're like, I may have seen the Fouke Monster.
Oh, if you've seen a Fouke Monster, Sean.
That may have been the case with the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp.
Ooh.
Also known as the Lizard Man of Lee County.
Oh. Moving on up.
Now, this was in Lee County, South Carolina, specifically, outside of a town called Bishopville. And on July 14th, 1988, the Lee County Sheriff's Office was called out to investigate a report of a car that had been damaged. And when they got there, 17-year-old Christopher Davis, presumably marched out of the house by his parents, explained to the officers what had happened to him allegedly 2 weeks before. Christopher said he was driving home from his job at a fast food joint. He was running late. It was about 2 hours after the restaurant had closed, and he caught a flat. So no problem. He had a spare. He knew how to fix the car. He got out, jacked the car up, replaced the tire. He was all done fixing it, and he turned and looked across a butterbean field, and there in the moonlight, it's South Carolina, baby. They're growing butterbeans.
Oh, it's like I'm there. I smell the butterbeans.
And he sees a creature walking towards him through the moonlight. Now, Brian said it was green, wet-like, about 7 feet tall, and had 3 fingers, red eyes.
What's it with these 3-finger, 3-toes things?
A skin like a lizard and snake-like scales. He jumped back in the car, tried to drive away, and said that the creature jumped on top of the car. He said, I heard a crash. It disappeared, and then I heard a crash on the roof. So Chris hits the brake. He hears a thump, and all the thumping and scratching that he heard on top of his car stops. So he's like, okay, good. I've kicked this thing off my car. And he told this story to the sheriff. He told the story subsequently to reporters. And even the sheriff at the time said this. He said, what impressed me was that he told the same story every time. And he had to tell the same story over and over again to the media and others. If you're lying, you can't tell the same story twice.
Yeah. Or you start to embellish because it's like, oh, and you know what? Da-da-da-da-da. You're like trying to keep the juice in it.
Exactly.
Now, was the damage to the car that he was reporting to the roof?
There were scratches allegedly on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen photographs of the damage to this car, and I feel like if the scratches were really deep and impressive looking, there would be photographs.
Mm-hmm.
But the side view mirror was badly damaged, and there were some scratches, apparently.
Now, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Teenage kids who damage their parents' car.
Well, a lizard man damaged the car.
They never come up with outlandish stories to explain.
I can't think of any who would know. Oh, is that what you're suggesting happened here?
Well, I don't know.
You think Christopher made up the lizard man?
I don't know.
You think he, plowed into someone's mailbox when he was drunk and broke his dad's mirror?
I don't know.
Because that sounds crazy to me.
Oh, okay.
Local newspapers covered the story because, again, we have a credible report from this boy. Local businesses started selling Lizard Man T-shirts.
I want one.
And this is where we get into this is the old familiar story, right? Now the machine ramps up. The town's excited. It's kind of fun. The local radio station, WCOS, offered a $1 million reward for the live capture of the Lizard Man.
Well, that's nice. It's live.
Yeah, I love these because they know there's nobody's going to bring in a lizard man.
Yeah.
Offer all the money you want. On August 5th, there were more reports, but most of them were just not eyewitness accounts, but we saw some trees moving back there, and it was something big, and we think it was the thing, or something damaged my car, and I'm pretty sure it was the thing, or our dog is dead. So
Yikes, Sean. Or our dog is dead.
Our dog is dead. An animal took our dog,
Oh. Maybe I should go check on Peanut.
I don't think we have any lizard men.
No, we have melon heads.
Oh, the shit. We got to check on Peanut. So on August 5th, there was another pretty interesting sighting. A guy named Kenneth Orr. He was an airman.
Kenneth or what?
A guy named Kenneth Orr. He was an airman. And, I wanted you to keep Abbott and Costelloing me.
Oh.
A guy named Kenneth Orr. He was an airman. He was stationed at Shaw Air Force Base nearby. And he filed a police report claiming that he had encountered the lizard man on Highway 15 at night and shot and wounded it.
Gotta bring it in live, Kenny.
He presented several scales and some blood as evidence.
And I'm sure this was analyzed?
2 days later, as soon as Kenneth was charged with unlawfully carrying a pistol, he recanted his story, and he was then charged instead with filing a false report.
So what were the scales in the blood? Did they test him?
I couldn't find that, but I would assume it was just from some large lizard. There are lizards in the...
Sure.
Oh, well,
I was just wondering why they knew he was filing a false report.
Oh, because he said it was fake. Because they said, if you shot the lizard man and you don't have a pistol permit, then you broke the law.
Jesus. Okay. Okay, Ken.
Reports gradually declined at the end of the summer. Again, we're following the same storyline again. And the cops assumed those further sightings after Brian's were probably a bear, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the first time I'm going to mention a guy who we're going to rely on a lot in this episode. Because actually, the position of sober, reasonable cryptid researcher has room for exactly one man, apparently.
All right.
And that guy's name is Ben Radford. And he writes books, he writes articles for magazines.
I feel like I have a book by him somewhere.
I bet you do. He writes right along your interests, although he's a pretty skeptical guy. So, Ben wrote an article...
Listen, I married you. Okay.
He might be your type.
Keep me away from Ben.
Ben wrote an article in the Fortean Times where he quoted... first of all, it's a whole investigation, a pretty good piece on this Fouke... Not the Fouke lizard man.
On this old Fouke.
I'm confusing all these monsters. On the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. But the most interesting thing that I found in there was where he quoted an Alicia Lutz, who was a student from the College of Charleston, who he talked to, who was a big lizard man buff who was kind of conducting her own research.
Mm-hmm.
And Alicia Lutz, now this is kind of third hand. That's the only problem with it, right? We're getting it from Ben, who got it from Alicia, but at least there's names.
Sure.
Alicia Lutz said she talked to a Lucius Elmore. She was kind of asking around town about the lizard man, and she was pointed to this guy.
Lucius Elmore.
Called Brother Elmore by his neighbors.
Okay.
Brother Elmore was a butterbean farmer.
Stop with the butter beans.
And he would dry his butterbeans.
No.
Yeah, the boxer, Butterbean the boxer. You just had to keep him dry. No, he would empty all these butterbeans. Stop laughing.
I'm just thinking about him drying his butter beans.
Butterbeans is not as funny as Fouke.
But butter beans is pretty funny.
So you have to dry them after you pick them. So he would empty them out onto a table, a drying table in a drying shed, kept especially dry and slightly cooler than the outdoors by AC units.
Okay.
This was 1988, right? So AC units weren't ubiquitous yet, not even the window jobs. But he had 3 of them there in his shed, and so they would get stolen sometimes.
Ugh. Leave the man's butter beans alone.
Yeah, so Brother Elmore was getting pissed off, and he had, that summer of 88, taken to staying up all night, sitting in front of his drying shed, and just watching for the thieves who were coming to take his AC units.
Mm-hmm. I think I see where this is going.
And the same night that Chris saw the monster, Lucius Elmore chased away a thief.
Oh.
He walked up to the ridge at the bottom of his property, overlooking the road, looked down at the car that he thought was there to take his AC units. There was a kid out there changing his tire.
It just went
He said the kid
wild.
looked up at him, screamed, got in the car, and ran away.
So what happened to the top of the car? Why was there damage?
Well, I love this. This is what makes this great, and Ben Radford takes this the rest of the way. He speculates that maybe the red taillights of the car could have made Elmore's glasses look red.
Yeah, I've heard something like that for the Mothman as well.
So that tracks for me. That makes enough sense. But here's the beautiful thing. And I didn't realize this till I read it in Radford's article, but Chris Davis's statements don't actually say he saw the monster leap onto his car roof. They say
he felt something.
He heard a thump.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't say he saw it roll down over the hood after he pumped the brakes or anything. They say he heard thumping and scratching on the thing and on the roof of the car, and then when he slammed the brakes on, they stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So he figured, good, it worked. I can escape now.
Were there low-hanging trees in the area or something?
Well, it's a heavily wooded, like swampy forest area, yeah. So just some branches scraping across the top of the car. Now he thinks there's like a monster scraping.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's if you don't just go with the explanation that he's a 17-year-old boy who was lying because he broke Dad's car.
But what a lie, Sean.
It's a great one, and you know what?
Well, I don't know if it's a great one, but it's a fun one.
It is a great one because it put this little town on the map.
How do you even get mad at your kid after that? It's like,
I wouldn't.
Wow, you out crazied me.
Really impressive stuff, kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this. And then there were a few others, but there are usually variations on a theme. Not a few others. I should mention pretty much every region of this country has a monster of its own, forests and swamps. We have the melonheads. We've covered this.
Look at Washington, D.C., am I right?
Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. Here's something interesting that I've noticed, though. In the southeast, the deep southeast, the swampy river areas, you get lizard men, you get gator men.
Sure.
Up in the Pacific Northwest, it's always Bigfoot.
Got to.
Why settle for anything less?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that it kind of goes with the local wildlife, and there's a specific thing to the southeast quadrant of the United States of goat men that I don't understand.
Goat men?
Sure, you've got the goat man of Maryland. You've got the Pope Lick Monster.
Who?
The Pope Lick Monster.
Is
We have a friend, Alec, who we call Lick, which is funny.
Well, now he's Pope Lick, so put some respect on his name.
The Pope Lick Monster, the Goat Man of Old Alton Bridge.
Oh.
These origins of these goat men vary by the region. So the Goat Man of Maryland was a scientist who was experimenting on goats until...
What is he, the swamp thing?
His experiments backfired and he was made goat-like himself.
No.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
But meanwhile, the Goat Man of the Old Alton Bridge is just believed to literally be a demonic satyr.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, aren't people thinking this is some sort of weird devil creature because of the cloven hooves and horns and stuff?
Well, I certainly would lean devil creature and not scientist, because no matter the origin, these stories always have the goat walking on hind legs and attacking its victims with a bloody axe.
Yeah, obviously, Jean. He has to do something.
And I'll also say the Pope Lick monster actually has apparently caused a good number of deaths and injuries over the years in real life, but more just by encouraging dumb kids to climb up onto railroad trestles that still have trains go over them.
Oh, dear.
And are over a pretty high drop.
Now, do we know why these goat people carry axes?
No!
Okay.
I don't know why that wrinkle... that's why it fascinates me that detail, like the goat man with an axe, is from Maryland to the middle of Texas. They all tell this story.
Now, I'm going to talk about a regional urban legend on one of our mini-sodes coming up about a bunny man. Now, he is not a man bunny. He's wearing a bunny outfit. And I think he has an axe, too. I feel like that's the most threatening thing to be coming at you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
like a sword is like, what are you doing, man?
Well, a sword can also be used defensively.
Mm-hmm.
An axe is for chopping something up.
Yes. I mean... It's interesting because, it's not a knife usually. That's usually for a person, right? But a monster or monstrous person, they have to take it to the next level. An axe means business. Yeah,
and maybe a sword or a knife feel like things you have to have some things we think of as needing some skill to wield.
And certainly a sword is kind of old-fashioned. So, if you're making a legend, it's not going to be like, well, he was holding a sword. It's like, yeah, maybe if he's the headless horseman, but not the bunny man.
Right.
The Mr. Lick over here.
A satyr holding a sword? Was it just a trailer for Diablo 4 you were watching?
Also, are the hands cloven? Because then how is it holding the axe?
No, remember he's a goat man, so I think he does have hands with which to hold his axe.
Now, Sean.
I didn't read that, but I would assume...
Is the top half always a man?
No. His head is definitely a goat head. His legs are goat legs. I think he just has the general configuration of a man and fingers.
I was kind of hoping it was a centaur situation, and the bottom half would be a man, and then the top would be a goat, and you're like, what happened here?
Just has a naked, just his man stuff hanging out?
I think that would be more intimidating.
That would be pretty intimidating.
Just running at you with an axe and its cloven hooves? No, thank you.
Well, he doesn't have cloven hooves anymore.
He does on the top.
Oh, no. How does he hold the axe?
Exactly, shot!
Pressing them real close together.
It's like Poe when he's holding a bone to lick it.
He does.
Anyway. Okay, Pope Lick Monster. Got it.
Yeah. So that's kind of... That's all of the land-based creatures that I found for this week.
Ooh, are there more?
Now, again, we're going to have to do, I think... full episodes on the Mothman and the Jersey Devil.
For sure.
The Mothman, I don't think we've mastered our kung fu enough to do it yet.
And also in these COVID times, these unprecedented times, there's no Mothman Festival. And I think we going to the Mothman Festival has to be a part of that episode.
100% true.
That's also on my bucket list. So, two birds, one stone. Two moths, one stone. Whatever.
So that stuff is coming. Don't worry, I'm not leaving those out. But those really are the most interesting land-based ones. There was, where was the frog man?
Now we had frog people. Remember in our first or second episode, we talked about them along with the melonheads. I
sure do remember that. There was another frogman story from somewhere else, but it was literally less compelling than your frogman story.
Wow. I was telling it, Sean.
So there's
also, I think the frog was just buying soup at the store. So if it was less compelling than that.
Well, exactly. This one was under a bridge, and then he waved to a man.
Ooh, Pennywise, the frog.
So, I think the tier below this, you get into the melon head section of like, nobody believes this actually happened. There's no report that you could ever call credible. So those are I think this is the C team of North American land-based cryptids. But
okay.
Not all terrors live on land, Caroline.
Some come from the skies.
Shit, that's not where I was going.
Oh.
Now I feel like I have to go get some sky-based.
Yes.
Yes. And we'll be back with what lies beneath in a moment.
You're here, which means you love podcasts. But are you looking for another kind of entertainment on the go? Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to memoirs, news, business, and more. By signing up for a free trial at www.audibletrial.com/ain'titscary, you'll receive access to thousands of titles with 1 credit toward any audiobook and 2 Audible originals, free during your trial and then with subscription each month after. Personally, my favorite Audible title is also my favorite book, It by Stephen King. I went into this audiobook ready to judge because I've loved this novel since I was a kid. But between the stellar production value and the truly breathtaking narration performance by actor Steven Weber, I was 100% all in. If you like this podcast and have a strong stomach, I think you will be too. Not into audiobooks? No problem. With podcasts, theatrical performances, guided meditations, and more, Audible offers something for everyone. So what are you waiting for? Get started now. And hey, you'll be helping support the podcast. Visit our link at www.audibletrial.com/ain'titscary for a free trial. That's www.audibletrial.com/ain'titscary. Audible. Listen more.
Welcome back to our exploration of the North American Cryptid C team. Carrie, what would you say is the most famous water-based cryptid on the planet?
On the planet?
Mm-hmm.
Nessie.
That's
Loch
right.
Ness Monster.
The Loch Ness Monster.
It's over there. I have a sticker of it on my laptop.
Oh, yes, of course you do.
And there's the Mothman and there's the Bigfoot.
There's the Bigfoot, yeah. So Nessie might even be better known than the Bigfoot himself. She was first reported in 565 AD.
Really?
Well, a large creature in the lake was first reported in 565 AD.
Wow.
Modern interest in Nessie started in 1933 when George Spicer and his wife saw what basically looked like a brontosaurus cross the road in front of their car.
Shit.
They said it was a giant, animal, easily 100 feet long. They had a giant long neck with a little head at the top.
You're telling me I have to worry about that? Like, I'm just worried about hitting a deer on the Merritt.
I don't know. It's just an eyewitness report. There was never any evidence that this happened.
Yeah,
this
it's the 30s. I don't think they had cameras that could probably handle that something that quick, right?
Well, just the next year, in 1934, the picture was taken.
Oh, the classic.
Yeah. What is called the surgeon's photograph. Because it was taken by Robert Kenneth It was supposedly taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson. That's the guy who submitted that photo to the newspaper. Mm-hmm. Who was a gynecologist. And he didn't want his name in the paper. And they weren't going to
make him a surgeon.
And they weren't going to say gynecologist in the newspaper, so they just said the surgeon's photograph.
Okay.
Now, this photograph was actually taken by Marmaduke Wetherell.
Stop.
Really. Who was a reporter for the Daily Mail.
Marmaduke Wetherell?
Uh-huh. And he did this to get revenge on his employer. Because they had, earlier that summer, he had been given some Nessie footprints. Like, hey, look, these are some footprints from the monster that couple saw. and he brought it to his boss and was then publicly ridiculed.
Marmaduke.
Yeah, so it was actually like his nephew's or his son's toy submarine that they attached little head and fins to, went out and took the pictures just in the very shallow water. They actually heard a cop coming while they were standing there, and he just crushed that little sub with his foot. He said it's still probably lying at the bottom of the lake.
Why was he worried that the cop would find them taking a picture of a tiny toy?
Because what if he then recognized, the same scene?
Okay.
Anyway, why do I bring up Nessie? This is a North American Cryptid C Squad, right? So
because she's sweet.
Nessie's the A-team, and she's in Scotland. Yeah. But she truly, even more than Bigfoot is the template for land-based cryptids, Nessie is the template for the water ones. Mm-hmm. Every lake monster and sea monster that I have heard of bears a strong resemblance to the Loch Ness Monster.
Well, I think that also applies to the fact that we've explored less of our oceans and seas and, different bodies of water than we have of our galaxy? Like, isn't that a thing? Or we know less about it?
Well, the galaxy's really, really big, but I think less than the moon or something like that.
But it's also, these things
you're
aren't
right.
observable, whereas we can see into space and such.
Yes, and you're right. The deepest depths of our oceans are like just as much of a mystery to us as space is. Mm-hmm. And so there could be things down there.
I think it would be crazy to assume there isn't. Mm-hmm. Especially in the depths. I mean, they could have easily survived what wiped out the dinosaurs. Absolutely,
and there are some really big things down there. Unlike on land, with the land-based hominids, especially, it's pretty tough. Like a gorilla the size of Bigfoot. Scientists say you would need like 4,000 to 6,000 of them probably to have a breeding population to maintain the species. And at that point, how much food are those Bigfoots eating, and how are they? Where are they? Right, but in the ocean,
they're in Portland, Sean. They're starting a band.
They're shaving mostly.
Shaving Mostly is a great band.
That's actually true. Yeah, so all of these lake monsters and other monsters that inhabit specific bodies of water, they tend to be Nessie types. I guess the problem you get into there is this isn't something from the deep reaches of the ocean. Then it's something that lives in a lake that's probably less than 1,000 feet deep. Mm-hmm. That's a very deep lake, by the way. We have some very deep lakes in these stories.
Oh, definitely. There are some lakes that are more like bays and oceans. Mm-hmm.
So first I'm going to tell you about the Bear Lake Monster. The Bear Lake Monster lives on as you might expect, in Bear Lake.
Okay.
Which sits on the border of Utah and Idaho. Mm-hmm. This thing was first described by a Joseph C. Rich in a I wrote 1968, but it's 1868. This thing was first described by Joseph C. Rich, who was a Mormon settler. Mm-hmm. And he wrote about the Bear Lake Monster in an 1868 article in the Deseret News as follows. The Indians have a tradition concerning a strange serpent-like creature inhabiting the waters of Bear Lake. Now, it seems this water devil, as the Indians called it, has again made an appearance. A number of our white settlers declare they have seen it with their own eyes. This Bear Lake Monster, they now call it, is causing a great deal of excitement up here. The article then went on to describe several local accounts, or recount several locals' accounts of seeing the monster. Describing it as a serpent-like creature, 40 to 50 feet long at the minimum, but with 18-inch long legs sticking out of its body along the length of it to trundle along the shore when it had to.
Gross.
Yeah, and its head was described as being very similar to a cow's.
Aw.
Or an otter's.
Huh.
Or a crocodile's.
Ew.
Or a walrus's.
Huh?
Something like that. So church elders visiting it at this time, because this is all Mormon stuff, So church elders would come in, see how they were doing. And church elders visiting at the time wrote that they, quote, had a conversation with the brother Charles C. Rich and other brethren from Bear Lake Valley respecting the monster which have been seen in the lake. And they called those claims indisputable. These are like big deal Mormons. They're not just going to believe any story. News articles in the Deseret News continued to appear with stories of sightings of the monster over the next couple of years. Brigham Young himself became interested in the monster and sent a very long rope to Paris, Idaho, which also borders Bear Lake, with his recommendation that it be used to capture the monster.
Thanks, Brigham. What am I going to do with this?
Well, exactly.
I love how it's a very long rope.
One plan to capture the monster involved 300 feet of rope with a big old just hook at the end, rigged up to a buoy, and they were going to bait the hook and just leave it there.
Guess that didn't work.
It didn't. And the monster was just a monster, and the sightings, once again, as happened in those land-based stories, faded away. But I bet they faded away really quick when Joseph C. Rich stopped writing for the Deseret News, because in 1894 he admitted that whole thing had been a, quote, wonderful first-class lie.
Joseph.
He just made the whole thing
You're a journalist.
Yep.
Ugh.
Despite that, sightings have continued. In 1907, 2 men claimed the monster destroyed their camp and killed 2 horses.
Ooh.
And there were sightings in 1937 and 1946, and then as recently as 2002. So it's funny how it can kind of live on in the imagination so much that people still see it today.
Or it's living in the lake, Sean.
Or it's real. So that's the Bear Lake monster. It seems like every lake in the U.S. has its own monster.
Yeah, why not?
You've got the actually not even just lakes, the Chesapeake Bay monster, Chessie.
Sweet.
You also have the Lake Erie monster, who's for some reason named Bessie.
All right.
And in Lake Tahoe, Tessie.
So we got Chessie, Bessie, Tessie, and Nessie.
You do, yeah. And so there's a little bit of a naming convention there.
Oh, a little.
And one of those creatures that we have had a chance to get a little bit more acquainted with ourselves is Champy.
Yay!
Champ, the Lake Champlain monster.
I love him.
He has been sighted over 300 times total. The local Abenaki, who lived in the region before white men came, called the creature the Giddisgong.
What does that mean?
Giddisgog. It was just a name for that, I think. I don't have a translation for it, but they believed there was a large horned serpent lurking in the lake, but was kind of a benevolent spirit, I think.
And this is part of their mythology and stuff?
The Giddisgog, yeah, apparently.
Oh.
But it was first mentioned that legend could be connected to the Lake Champlain monster, but the monster itself was first mentioned in 1819 in the Plattsburgh Republican, where the reporter said that a, quote, Captain Grum, that's the name here, Captain Grum saw a 187-foot serpent about 200 yards away. He said it was followed by 2 large sturgeon and a billfish.
Okay.
And he said, now keep in mind, this guy's 200 yards away, so his eyes are great.
Well, yeah, he knows exactly 187.
Yep, 187-foot serpent. And he said that it had 3 teeth.
Aw.
Eyes the color of peeled onions.
Oh.
A belt of red around its neck. And a white star on its forehead.
Oh, it's like Black Beauty.
Yes, it's just like Black Beauty. So this didn't kick off the...
Are they little teeth or all very big teeth? I need to know.
He didn't elaborate on the size of the teeth, but I bet if there's only 3, they would have to be pretty big.
I don't know, it'd be kind of adorable if it's just 3 little teeth.
It would be cute, like a cartoon baby.
Or a jack-o'-lantern.
In 1873, the sheriff at that time, Nathan H. Mooney, saw a sea serpent that was 25 to 30 feet long, and the New York Times published a report of a railroad crew spotting a sea serpent's head poking out of Lake Champlain. And, of course, now more reports started to follow.
Now, have we said where Lake Champlain is?
No, perhaps we haven't. Lake Champlain is in Vermont.
But it borders on other places too, right?
Yeah, it sits right on the Vermont-New York border at the Vermont capital of Burlington.
And at the Burlington Capitol, you can see their statue of Champ. And there's also like a stone monument to it as well, with like an inscription and everything.
We'll get pictures of that up, and a picture of us with Champ.
We've had those up. They're a little further back on our Instagram if you want to scroll.
We'll get them up on this episode page too. More reports followed. People started coming out of the woodwork to say they had seen this thing. And in 1873, P.T. Barnum himself took out an ad. Our old friend P.T. Barnum took out an ad.
Local hero.
Took out an ad in the Green Mountain Freeman saying, "I hereby offer $50,000 for the hide of the great Champlain serpent to add to my Mammoth World's Fair show."
Whoa. He's always coming on pretty aggressive, huh?
In 1887, he took out another ad that said, P.T. Barnum believes a huge sea serpent exists and has renewed his offer of $20,000 for the reptile. So he knocked the price off by $30,000 in between.
You can't say it's renewing.
If you're P.T. Barnum, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
I'd love to renew my, mortgage for $2 a month, but that doesn't make it true.
Champy today, like many cryptids, but even more so than most, these lake monsters a lot of times become sort of local mascots, and Champy in particular is seen as sort of a brand ambassador for Vermont and for Burlington specifically. There's even a local local minor league baseball team, the Vermont Lake Monsters, that plays in Burlington. So that's just kind of a cute piece of local color at this point.
Yeah. I want a Vermont Lake Monsters baseball jersey. Hint.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. You got it. He's such a beloved part of the local culture that in 1982, the Vermont House of Representatives passed a resolution stating that Champ may exist, and if he does, he should be protected from harm. The resolution also encouraged scientific inquiry into unusual animals in Lake Champlain.
Freaking love Vermont. They're they don't care.
The following year, New York's Senate and House passed a similar resolution.
Good for you guys.
Absolutely. I think that's a nice ending for Champ.
Yeah. Hope we see him someday.
Yes. Absolutely. Finally, we're going to visit our friends up north in Canada for our last aquatic cryptid.
Oh, hi, Canadian friends.
This is a little guy I like to call the Ogopogo.
Aww.
And the name's too fun not to get to it. He lives in Okanagan Lake, supposedly, in British Columbia. Now, this is a pretty big lake. It's 79 miles across. Its maximum depth is 762 feet.
Wow.
Which makes it just a little more than half the length of Lake Champlain, but more than twice as deep. And maybe because of that depth or salt content, I guess, it's only frozen 8 times in the last 110 winters.
That's surprising.
Yeah, and it also makes it a better candidate for hosting all kinds of different life.
Sure.
So, the local Secwepemc and Silex natives talked about a being they called Naitaka in the lake. This was a water spirit that demanded natives sacrifice a small animal in order to cross the lake safely.
Okay.
Or in order to guarantee safe passage. And supposedly there's a local oral tradition passed down of a visiting chief from another tribe named Timbasket, who rejected the sacrifice and said, "There's no spirit," got into the canoe with his family, And Naitaka whipped up the surface of the lake with his long tail, sucked the canoe and the family to the bottom of the lake. European settlers understood the word Naitaka to mean water demon.
I mean, you hear a story like that, you're like, well, he's not a nice spirit.
Right, native, yeah. But he was more like a benevolent spirit who just wanted a little vig on the way across the river.
I mean, yeah, he's not asking for much. It was a small animal. He's not asking for a bear or something.
That's right. The first white person to report seeing anything out of the ordinary in Okanagan Lake was Susan Allison in 1872. Now, Susan Allison is a pretty famous person in Canadian history. She's a pretty famous Canadian pioneer because she moved to this valley. She was she and her husband were the first white people to move there in I think they decided to move in 1868. By 1872, they'd established a home there, and they lived just kind of among natives, established relationships with them, and just lived off the land and raised 14 kids and she wrote all about their experiences. So
cool.
Anyway, she was the first person to claim to have seen a large serpent in the water. Now, in 1968, a guy named Art Folden was driving on Highway 67 nearby, and he noticed something on the lake. So he pulled closer and saw what he said he saw something, quote, large and lifelike. And so he grabbed his video camera. Pretty early for camcorders, so yeah, but he had one. And he captured a video of a pretty interesting video of what appears to be a very large animal, too far away to see the shape very clearly, but clearly moving, clearly alive, and apparently pretty large on the surface of the water. Now, National Geographic has a show called, conveniently, Is It Real? And, on an episode of that show, some researchers put boats in the lake to figure out where the shape would have been in the water when the picture was taken, like just comparing visually where they were. And they figured out where the object would have been, and it was a lot closer to the shore than it actually appeared in the photo. And so any animal that was there would have appeared a lot larger than it was. Is at least what they thought. And they determined probably a beaver, otter, or fowl that Art Folden got in that.
It was just a little beaver that he thought was a monster?
Yeah, it was just much closer to the camera than he thought, so it's like a trick of perspective, like a hobbit. Yeah,
but if I was driving and I looked out onto the shore of a lake, and I saw Poe sitting near the lake, I wouldn't be like, that's a monster.
What if Poe was
he's a little monster, but that's neither here nor there.
What if he was raised up on a small ridge and it looked like he was sitting in the...
Oh, it's a little king.
Well, this would be something in the water, though.
Still, I don't think...
But remember...
I don't think I would think it was a sea monster. I would think, look at that tiny dog. A beaver or an otter, that's small. Like, an otter?
Right, but it's out on... It's a very big lake, right? Think about it when you see... Think of it more like when we're on the island and you see a boat out near the horizon. You can't always tell if that's a big boat really far away or a small boat a little closer.
Yeah, but I could tell the difference between a monster and an otter.
Remember, the otter was too far away for them to tell whether it was an otter or a duck.
I just
They
don't
said it was
understand.
probably a beaver, otter, or fowl, but it was something about that size.
Okay, sure.
This wasn't the last sighting, though. In 1980, 50 tourists watched what they thought was the Ogopogo for 45 minutes. And a tourist named Larry Tal shot 10 seconds of 8mm film. Obviously pretty low quality, but still compelling. And in 1992, some cell phone video. It's 1992. Some video someone grabbed on their camcorder during a vacation shows a water skier falling next to some dark shapes pass by in the water. Now I'm going to return to my friend Benjamin Radford, who wrote a whole book about all this stuff, by the way, Lake Monster Mysteries, investigating the world's most elusive creatures. So specifically lake monsters, he's something of an expert on.
Sure.
And he says they're not real. He
Ben, why you gotta do me like that?
with the water skiing video, Radford does point out. You can see this video, by the way. We'll show you how to get to it. Radford points out that the shapes are bobbing very slowly, and they don't seem to react to the water skier falling into the water near them, nor does she react to falling into the water next to what would be kind of a monster or something.
So what does he think? It was like a buoy or something?
Well, I'll point out there was also cell phone video, low quality because it's 2011, but that shows two dark shapes moving and bobbing sort of in the water. Radford points out that Canada's logging industry has dropped tens of thousands of logs into Lake Okanagan over the years that are still bobbing just beneath the surface. And that is a lot of dark bobbing shapes that tend to get pulled in next to each other and then just float around in kind of a train. People have also pointed out that the otters are super social, so they swim together, and a lot of times they swim in a line. And if you saw several otters' heads, you might think...
I would cry, because that would be so sweet.
But you might at first think it was the humps of a much larger snake-like creature.
If I saw just a few otter heads, I would think it was a sea snake.
You might, Rabbit, you might.
My eyesight is not as bad as yours, Sean.
That's the last aquatic cryptid that I have for you, because after this they're all variations on that theme.
Sure.
Like I said.
Big lake dinosaur.
And the explanations tend to be pretty similar too. It's logs, it's otters. Sturgeon is the other thing that gets thrown around the most often. Sturgeon are pretty big fish. They can be like 5 feet long, and then maybe water refraction or something could make them look bigger underwater. Or a couple of them could look like the folds of a big snake thing. So yeah, that's it's not that interesting to keep picking apart different lake monsters because the cases are all pretty similar. But they are fun, and they do seem to, even more than the land-based. I know we had Lizard Man, Fouke Monster, whatever, t-shirts. But the lake monsters really get kind of brought in as part of a city's local folklore and identity, and it's fun.
Yeah, I like it. I
like
love
it.
Champ.
Yeah, Champ is he's sweet.
He's sweet,
and he's a great mascot, even if he's fictional.
I love anything where a team is named after something like that, whether it's the Lake Monsters, the New Jersey Devils, which I think is fun. I love that. Do you
buy any of this? Do you find the sea monsters? Do you find the lake monsters more believable than the?
I find them more compelling. Yeah. I mean, we're always, this is more to the ocean and stuff, but we're always finding new things in water. Ancient creatures sometimes, creatures we haven't seen in hundreds or thousands of years that haven't been recorded. I mean, there was just a giant squid a few years ago. We thought those didn't really exist. And I also think that something like that has more of a chance of having descended from dinosaurs because... with the meteor and everything that wiped out all the dinosaurs back in the day, if you're super deep in the water or something, you may have not been killed by that.
Right.
So I find it, I find the land or the ocean and sea and lake ones a little more compelling than the land ones. I mean, we'll see when we talk about the Bigfoot and the Sasquatch and all that stuff. But yeah, the goat men are weird.
That's the most fun one for me.
Oh yeah, we love a Pope Blick monster.
But the all of the lake monsters are what they look like is a plesiosaur.
Yeah, there's something kind of
which is a dinosaur. I don't know if it's a true. I don't know if it's a true dinosaur or not, but it's a prehistoric animal that I think is a dinosaur that swam, and it looks like a Lapras from Pokemon.
Right.
It's long neck, 4 flippers.
Well, the thing about the lake monsters too is that they're usually described as kind of cute, like a Lapras or like a little Brontosaurus or something.
Yeah.
And they're usually never like harming people. Whereas you got friggin' goat men with axes coming after people, lizard men getting on your car.
The Bear Lake monster killed those guys' horses.
I'm talking about like people, or like they're never pulling down a boat or something, you know? So they're definitely like, I don't know, they're just more fun. Because they seem well-intentioned and good-natured.
Good-natured.
Benevolent god.
I think even in a big lake, you run into the same Bigfoot problem of like, how do you support a population of big monsters in that lake? Or is it just one that's lived for hundreds of years?
I don't know. Gotta go ask them.
I don't know. So yeah, it doesn't work for me, but that doesn't mean it's not fun. It's definitely all fun.
For sure.
We're going to have a lot of fun with this break, and then we're going to come back with some news. Right, Carrie?
Right.
Beautiful.
It's time for Crying Saucers. We'll have a real sound effect for that someday.
Someday.
Straight out of Texas, a man claiming to be a native of Saturn, the planet, has filed a lawsuit against the U.S. government alleging the violation of his civil rights.
This I have to hear.
Last Friday, Rikia Collings of Allen, Texas, filed a suit in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas, claiming that he has been living on this planet since before the formation of the United States, and the federal government has been discriminating against him for centuries, starting, you guessed it, July 4th, 1776.
Oh, yes, right, when they made a country here.
Mm-hmm. The reasoning behind his claims of discrimination are very hard to unravel in his pages-long affidavit.
Uh-huh.
It might have to do with, quote, rent, release, or injectment.
What?
Maybe he's saying that he shouldn't owe rent or pay taxes.
Oh, because
since he's been living here since before America existed.
Right. You're all on my land. Listen, he's got a point. Like, it's not like he is evicting the rest of us. He's not saying we have to get off his land. He's just like, I shouldn't have to pay taxes. I was here first.
He has a point if he really is an alien from Saturn that's been here since before 1776.
You're right. What if he came here from Saturn like in 1972? Then he should be paying the rent.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
The affidavit he submitted is signed Capricornus, god of sun Rikia, and names the United Nations and the United Kingdom as co-defendants. So if this case gets anywhere, we'll be sure to update you right here.
Is the United Nations making him pay his rent?
Genuinely, I have no idea why they're co-defendants.
What's his name again? Capricorn?
His human name or his Saturn name?
Give me both.
Rikia Collings is his human name, and Capricornus, god of sun Rikia, is his Saturn name.
Oh, he's shed his family name.
Well, maybe he's from the Saturn Capricornuses. Who knows?
Oh, of the Saturn Capricornuses.
Very bougie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really it for this week. It's a light news week in terms of the weird, which, you know what? We're just trying to get to the end of this year. That's all we're trying to do.
And we're almost there. We're truly almost there. And you know what? You guys have helped us get there. So
100%. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? We won't. We'll save all the. We'll give you hugs after the break. Hold on.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Lots of things are a struggle right now. School, work, even something as simple as going to the grocery store, it could feel overwhelming. But one thing that shouldn't be overwhelming is accessing mental and emotional care. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp is the leader in online counseling with over 4,000 licensed counselors on the site and over 500,000 people who have gotten counseling to date. The mission of BetterHelp is to make professional counseling accessible, affordable, and convenient, so anyone who struggles with life's challenges can get help anytime, anywhere. I've been using BetterHelp for the better part of this year, and honestly, I don't know how I would have gotten through 2020 without it. And, of course, Sean and Poe. When I need to talk to my counselor, I can just text her and I can schedule chats, phone calls, or video calls for longer sessions. This means I have flexibility to set a session during the week, or during busy weeks, I can just shoot her a message here and there when I have time. Take control of your mental and emotional well-being. BetterHelp is a great place to start. For 10% off your first month subscription of BetterHelp, go to our podcast link at www.betterhelp.com/ain'titscary and see how good it can feel to push past the struggle and find hope in a new day. That's www.betterhelp.com/AINTITSCARY for 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Get professional counseling anytime, anywhere, because you deserve to be happy. That's it for this episode of Ain't It Scary with Sean and Carrie. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ain't It Scary, and check out our website at ain'titscary.com. You can support the show by supporting our sponsors and becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/ain'titscary. And please subscribe to the show and throw us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because we'll be forever grateful.
Yeah, also just tell friends about the show. Grab their phone and subscribe to us for them.
Yes, there's nothing like word of mouth, for sure.
Yeah. And while you're at it, come and join Nate Curtis, Sean O'Donnell, and our newest patron, Jared Chamberlain. Welcome to the Scary Squad, Jared. And we're really excited to have you on board. Guys, come and join us. We just got the Discord server up. Mm-hmm. We're dropping a new bonus episode today. We'll be getting those out with some regularity, and we want to start doing some Hellraiser reactions.
All different stuff.
Yeah, we're going to do... Carrie's got a podcast she's working on about the Monster Mash we want to get to you. So yeah, just come join us over there. There's lots of fun stuff.
Yeah, our mini-sodes so far are Typhoid Mary, and we're going to be dropping one on the Shroud of Turin and Holy Relics. So that'll be some holiday fun for the season.
Oh, it was a blast. Lots of laughs. Get over there with us. You're missing out.
Spoiler alert, we talk about Jesus's foreskin.
Lots of laughs.
See you next Thursday.
Show created by Sean and Carrie McCabe. Music by Kyle Ryan.
This has been a production of Longboy Media.